right. How's everybody doing out there? All right. This is Dr. Samori Swygert, and I have a special guest today, Mr. Trevor Ramos. So first of all, I want to say good evening, Source Nation, and welcome to SRN Live Television. I'm your host, Dr. Samori Swygert, host of the Pendulum, and tonight we have an amazing show for you. But before I go any further, I want to make sure that I thank our sponsors because they make all of this possible. And they are Zuliana Health and Fitness, Paper to Film Productions, Renovations, New Covenant of Praise Worship Center, Meet My Types Matchmaking, Blend to Blend Juice Bar Boutique, and Urban Grandstand Digital. All right. Now, Source Nation, if you'd like to advertise with SRN Live Television, you want to contact Kathy B. All right. And you can reach Kathy B at kathylynn1971@gmail.com. That is KATHYLYNN 1971@gmail.com, or TreCiJeffcoat@gmail.com. And that's TreCiJeffcoat@gmail.com. Now, you want to make sure that you share this stream broadcast on your social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Now, this evening, we have a powerful and an informative show that will enlighten and enrich your life. It will equip you with the strategies of giving your children a debt-free head start in their scholastic and professional careers. All right, so a little bit before we start swimming in all of this data and information, let's unpack it just a little bit, because Trevor is going to unpack it a lot, but I just want to unpack it a little bit so we can kind of get an idea of what we're talking about. The cost of living and rising inflation in America is tremendous. It grows exponentially every 5 years. So one of the things is, aside from tuition and fees and room and board and books, as parents that have children that have matriculated to college, been admitted to college and want to go, you have to think about what are the financial expenses and burdens that most parents and households are dealing with that has a child that's going to college. So aside from those college fees, you have to consider mortgage, rent, car notes. Some parents have student loans of their own that they're still paying. They may have credit card debt. You may have other siblings as a child, and as a parent, you may have other children. So you may be juggling and balancing the cost of daycare for other children. Some parents may have health, physiological ailments. So they may be balancing the health costs, drug costs. We know that's a big line item in the family budget, household budgets. And caring for elderly parents, that's a lot, elder care. And then just your regular day-to-day utilities. So all that is compounded and mixed in this big fruit bowl of expenses. It's stated that Americans as a collective struggle with an estimated $1.4 trillion in student loan debt. And this type of debt can really saddle a person down, and it can be an obstacle when it comes to managing and pursuing their goals as a citizen when it comes to home ownership and other things. So it's important that we get student loan debt nipped in the bud before it even becomes an issue. You don't want your children enslaved to federal student loans or Sallie Mae before they even guaranteed a job offer, because now what we're seeing is the trend is a lot of students are graduating with thousands of dollars of student loan debt, and they don't even have job offers yet. And the fact that widespread technology integration has outpaced the job market. And so a lot of jobs are not available now. So you have a lot of students that are graduating from school and can't even get job placement, but they already have to start paying back student loans. So they're going into default, they're ruining their credit. So it's something that must be addressed and navigated. So with that, I have my special guest, Mr. Trevor Ramos. He's written an awesome book that's chock full of information that he's going to share with us. And without further ado, I'm going to stop running my mouth, and I'm going to let Trevor introduce himself. Trevor, give us a brief intro about yourself and the book that you've put together.
Well, thank you, Dr. Samori. My name's Trevor Ramos. I'm the author of How to Get Free Money for College, and I work with college-bound high school students in the 9th, 10th, and 11th grade who are they want to go to some of the top colleges in the country,
Mhm.
and I show them how to get scholarships, grants, to maximize that so that they minimize their student loan debt. And I work with parents, I work with grandparents. I also work with students that attend community college and want to transfer to a four-year college.
All right, awesome, awesome. Now, what year did you write your book?
Yeah, I wrote the book in 2015
Mhm.
and just, come out with different editions. I update the book annually.
Oh, awesome, awesome, awesome. And where can they find your book and where can they find you? Because I sometimes we get so caught up in a good conversation we forgot to give the plugs. Where can they find your book, purchase your book, and contact you?
Okay, so they can get a copy of How to Get Free Money for College on Amazon. Just type in How to Get Free Money for College. You can get connected to me by going to collegefundingremedies.com. So that's collegefundingremedies.com.
All right, all right. So, like I said, this information is timely and apropos. Okay, now, Trevor, if you can briefly give us um, an idea of what got you started on this mission. How did you get on this mission to say, look, I have the knowledge and information and the facts to strategize way for you to get debt-free college education?
Well, I had to figure it out myself. It started with me. I didn't know if I was going to even get accepted to a college, let alone how my family was going to pay for it. So, I go back to the second semester of my junior year in high school. I thought I was going to get a scholarship by playing sports, but basically I was too short, and I was about a foot too short and 100 pounds too light to play one for Texas A&M and USC and all those schools. And I went to my high school counselor and I told her all these schools that I wanted to go to that really were not realistic schools for someone with my GPA. I had a 2.8 GPA because I spent a lot of time on the field. Didn't really have a lot of time to study. And, she told me that it was unlikely that I was going to be able to get into these schools. If I was lucky, I could get into one of the Cal States. I went to Van Nuys High School in Van Nuys, California.
Okay.
Um, so, that was a wake-up call for me. She just, recommended I go to a junior college and, that I could get my grades up and maybe I can get into some of the schools that I was talking about. That was a wake-up call for me. Not that there's anything wrong with going to community college. I think it's a great route, but I wanted to see if I could get into one of these top private universities straight out the gate from high school. So I tried anyway, and I got accepted to Boston University, and I got $165,000 over 4 years to go. And that was a huge, huge, huge boost of confidence for me.
Yeah.
And then I graduated, I got my degree in accounting, and I started working for a financial planner that told me exactly what you said, Dr. Samori, which is this stuff is getting expensive. This is a huge financial burden for parents to try to figure out how they can send all their kids to college. If you can do what you did for yourself and save all these parents money, they're not going to have to liquidate their investments and all those kinds of things, their retirement.
Yes.
And I did that, and I created an amazing track record to the point where, I'd saved hundreds of I sent hundreds of kids to college, over 300 kids I've sent to college.
Wow.
And saved, millions of dollars in tuition. And then finally somebody told me to write a book, and I bottled it all up and, made it something you could digest and go through this process.
Excellent. So with that being said, who would you say is your primary target audience?
So the parent of a 9th, 10th, and 11th grader who knows that they're going to go to college. It may be the student that knows, I want to go to college, I want to be a doctor, so on and so forth. Or it may be the parent that's driving the conversation, which is, I know that my child needs to at least get an education. Maybe I got an education, I went to graduate school, I went to college. I know how necessary it is for my child. They may not realize that now, But, you know, by the time push comes to shove, I know that they're going to go to college, and it's just going to be a matter of, you know, where's the money going to come from to pay for all of it, because I know it's also expensive.
You know, that brings me to a point, for those that'll be watching this now or later. Trevor and I had a conversation yesterday, and he's touching on something that is very important. It's sad in the country where you have gifted, talented students that want to learn and want to participate, and our society is based on the fact that you have to have these licenses, certifications, and degrees. But the fact that cost of college is one of the biggest hindrances of them obtaining that and then being a productive citizen. So we're trying to eliminate, that by getting rid of the financial burden with what we're having a discussion about tonight. Excuse me. So yeah.
Yeah, that brings a good point, if you don't mind. You know, a lot of people, I talk to, you know, people that do really well in positions and jobs that don't require a college degree. Like, I'll talk to a very successful realtor. I'll talk to a very, you know, very successful business owner, you know, very successful salesperson. And they might be thinking, you know, is it really necessary for me to send my child to college? I do pretty well for myself, and I didn't need a college degree to do what I'm doing. Well, the thing is that if we're talking about positions where, you know, you got a kid that's an extrovert, you know, you got a kid that's an entrepreneur that can talk to people, that can, you know, work a room, you know, it may or may not be necessary. But a lot of the positions, say if you have a child that's an introvert, or that you want to make sure that child has a skill, you know, that they're not going to be a top producing, you know, real estate broker, but you want them to at least be able to be a nurse, or at least be able to be an engineer, or at least be able to be an administrator, at least be able to be an accountant. You know, all these positions require a college degree. And that's kind of that safety net that you build for that child, so that they can at least, you know, use that as a means to generating income for themselves.
Right. Okay. So let's start peeling the onion back a little bit. As an author, I would put you in the same category as a coach or trainer, because you're teaching and giving people the expertise and the strategies to, you know, correct something or achieve something.
Yeah.
What are some of the misconceptions or mistakes about financing colleges that you hear from parents when you go to do your lectures, or you just talk to them, or they ask you questions?
Yeah. A lot of people think that their income is too high to qualify for financial aid. So they may not, you know, if I tell them, hey, there's a school that's $80,000 a year that you really need to send your kid to, and don't worry, they're going to give you, you know, $65,000 or $70,000 in financial aid, you know, they may not really believe that that's possible. And as a result, they're going to shy away from even having their child apply to those colleges. So, you know, one is they're not realizing that a college that is really expensive can give a lot of financial aid that can make it almost exactly the same cost or less as a state college.
Yeah.
They're not even applying for financial aid a lot of the times. They're going to the least expensive university instead of trying to get money from the most expensive. They might think that their child doesn't have, their child needs to have a 4.0 to get financial aid or scholarships. That's not necessary. So there's a lot of different myths. They might think that if they live in a good area and they own a home, that they're not going to qualify for financial aid. So, you know, a lot of these are myths. And, you know, the things that I do uncover that and explain how it really works.
Good. All right. So now, with that said, when they're applying for the colleges and everything, we're talking about getting a financial source of money that's going to, you know, pay for their college. But we're not talking about a government loan, and we're not talking about like private loans like Sally Mae and everything. What type of funding are you specifically talking about that these parents for these children are going to be receiving? What type of funds are we discussing?
Okay, so we're talking about institutional financial aid, scholarships, grants. What it means is that's money coming from the school itself.
Okay.
We're not really talking about money coming from the federal government. The federal government does not have enough money to pay for all of the tuition, room, and board for you to go to college right now.
Right.
The state, their grants are not keeping up with the rising cost of college. It's the college that decides that, okay, this person, let's bring it all the way down so that, you know, they only have to pay a fraction. So I'm talking about institutional grants or institutional scholarship, or in another way, money coming from the college.
All right. So everybody that's listening, I hope you got your pen and papers, like I said. So he said institutional grants and what's the other one?
Scholarships, institutional scholarships.
All right. All right, good. So that's what we're going to be looking for. All right. Now, the other thing that we were talking about yesterday, you were breaking down the different types of colleges. Now, what type of colleges seem to award the most money, or does your strategy work the most with? Because you were giving, like, you know, private.
Right. So you got three types of colleges as it relates to you know, I guess what their profit motive. If you have public universities, you have private universities that are nonprofit private universities, and then private universities that are for-profit. So you got public universities, nonprofit private, for-profit private. The nonprofit private are the most wealthiest institutions that have all these endowments that can be used to give a scholarship or grant to whomever they want, whether it's because they need the money based on their finances, or they need the money because the school needs someone to be one of their top pupils in the music department or in the anthropology department. So that's the private university. What do I mean? I mean schools like Johns Hopkins, NYU, Fordham University, Emory University, USC, private universities that are nonprofit.
Wow. And that's where you've noticed that you can get the most funding from.
They are the most generous. You know, pretty much what I do is I track which colleges are the most generous, which ones give out the most money, and I try to figure out who they are willing to pay to attend their school.
Okay. What I'm going to do, Trevor, I want to see if I can share screen. Okay, here we go. So, average cost of college statistics for 2018, right? And so here they show the average cost. So what you were breaking down, the average cost of college statistics by type. Now listen, people, this is what Trevor is saying he's going to save you. Private 4-year not-for-profit tuition, $50,900. Public 4-year out of state, $40,940. Public 4-year in-state, $25,290. And they break it all down in the expenses. So this first one that I'm highlighting, what you see, private 4-year not-for-profit colleges and universities, the tuition and fees alone is $34,740. Then room and board is like $12,000. Books and supplies are $1,000, transportation $1,000, other expenses $1,700. That brings you to that total $50,900, and that's just in a year. You know,
and so that's just the average too.
That's just the average. That's just the average. So you know, this is serious stuff. And the thing is, this is real data right here. This is from the NCES. This is from Department of Education College Affordability and Transparency Center. The other thing that I want to share with you, Trevor, and I'll let you have the platform again, is this. Let's open up. This is from U.S. News and World Report, everybody. And this is it shows you a 20-year growth in tuition in national universities. Look at what they say. They say the average tuition and fees at private national universities have jumped 157%. Out-of-state tuition fees at public national universities has risen 194%. In-state tuition fees at public national universities have grown the most, increasing 237% in a 20-year span. And so it goes even further and better to display it over time. So you have the time lapse. in 1997, now I went to Hampton in 1996, so this is very close. In 1997, tuition at a private school was on average $16,233. You go fast forward into 2018, 41,727, and that's just on average. That's not factoring in the other stuff that they broke down on the previous one. So we're dealing with significant financial burdens and hurdles that families are trying to juggle, that Trevor is trying to help you with. So anyway, Trevor, I'll get back to you. I just wanted to kind of give that to people so they can kind of see what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's perfect context. One of the things you got to keep in mind, so it said $50,000 tuition for a private university average, which is pretty accurate. What you have to realize is in that number is not included the room, board, books, and other personal expenses,
Right.
Which is why, some of the schools I'm talking about, like University of Chicago, Northwestern, those schools can be about $75,000. So you can add another, $25,000 when you actually include all the fees, everything out the door, and that's per year. What we're talking about is something that costs $300,000. We're having a conversation about, if you're going to send one child to college, 4-year college, out the door 4 years, you're going to be spending $100,000 to $300,000. What we're trying to figure out how to do is how to eliminate that cost as much as we possibly can. I can't promise you that every single person that's watching this video is going to send their kid to college for free. But if you can cut that in half, if you can cut that by 60, 70%, you have prevented you and your child from taking out student loans. We haven't even gotten into that, but student loan, the interest on student loans is about twice the interest that you're being charged on your mortgage. And they want it in 10 years, not 30 years. So imagine if your mortgage company said, we know that we lend you $200,000. You have 30, and we told you we have 30 years to pay us back. We're going to charge you 4%. But you know what? Instead of 30 years, give us the money in 10 years, and we're going to actually charge you 7.5%, not 4%. So you can see that, for $300,000 education, you can see that the amount of student loan debt that you're paying and the payment that you make when your kid graduates, or even when you're sending them, could be equivalent to your mortgage payment. And this isn't a house that we're getting. This is just trying to get our kid an education.
Right. That's crippling.
This is why, this is why I got into this, because if you really think about it, you can save a family, $400,000 or $500,000, depending on how many kids they have, just on the cost of tuition.
That's right. That's right. And also the other thing is, by doing what you're doing, you're allowing them to get that institutional grants and institutional scholarships, and the money that they parents would have probably forked up out of their pockets, they can say, you know what, Junior, Mary, while you're in school getting this institutional scholarships and these institutional grants, and we don't have to pay, what we'll do is we'll put some more of this in some type of financial vehicle or asset that's going to accrue money, so that when you get out, you can go ahead and get you a house or invest it in another financial vehicle, so that you're ahead of the game, instead of being, when you graduate, okay, we got to hurry up and start chiseling away at this debt. So
right.
That's spinning the ball.
It can build wealth for themselves. It compounds, so instead of that, and that's why that financial planner hired me, because, if I save this family $100,000, that was $100,000 that family didn't have to spend. They could keep it in their investments, and they could keep that growing and putting it to work, So yeah, it's very smart.
Now, what type of education does this usually work for? Is this for undergraduate, like bachelor's, or can it get this for like med school? Is this for like master's degree, doctoral degrees? What type of school?
Yeah, so we're talking specifically about undergraduate, so college. the 4 years undergraduate. We're not talking about graduate school or professional school, med school. That's a different type of game. Right now, there's so much money being thrown out there to get people an undergraduate education that's what I've chosen to specialize in. You can get scholarships to some of these, like MBA programs are also pretty generous. I've seen MBA programs discount their tuition all the way down to 60%. So you can get money in MBA programs. Dental schools, medical schools, I find that you have to actually commit to that school before you find out whether you got their best scholarship, which my thing is I want to create a feeding frenzy for this family and see who's willing to pay the most before we decide which school we want to go to. So, I like to say, okay, Carnegie Mellon gave us 50 grand a year. Santa Clara gave us 45 grand a year. University of Maryland gave us 25 grand a year. Which school do you like? Based on that. And, now that you've seen what they're all going to offer you, now you can make a more informed decision about which school you want to pick. It doesn't quite work that way with graduate school. You have to get in there, commit, and then say, oh, by the way, you also won our, our academic scholarship.
Gotcha. Now, this feeding frenzy that you're talking about, where we're kind of getting these universities that can, shell out this money. Now, when should parents start looking to, like, how does that even start? Like, where does a parent start?
Yeah, so this is great. Well, first, let me answer it, the other way. When is the wrong time to start? When do you not want to start? Well, a lot of parents think that the time to start thinking about how to get their kid a scholarship, how to get financial aid is the second semester of their senior year, which is when the schools come out with their offers and when you've actually found out which colleges your child has been accepted to and what it's going to cost you. That's not the appropriate time to maximize scholarships. By that time, a lot of the important deadlines have already come and gone, right? So you want to be doing this before your kid applies to college, while your child is selecting colleges. And, that's why I say 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. So the earlier, the better. A good question to ask is, when would you want to know how much it's going to cost to send your kid to college, right? And for most people, it's going to be, you want to know as soon as possible so that you can prepare for it, right? So the first step, is right when your kid is in the 9th, 10th, or 11th grade, the earlier the better, is to go on Google and type in EF as in Frank, C as in cat, calculator, EFC calculator, and run a calculation. There's a College Board link for it. And it's going to calculate how much you as a family are expected to pay each year for college, which is going to lead us to figuring out how much money we can get from these colleges in scholarships and grants, how close they can get to that number, or whether they can, even get lower than that number.
Okay, good. The EFC calculator. All right.
That's the first step. That's the first thing that I have everyone do. And from there, we can say, okay, all right, now that your EFC is, 12 grand, so you fill this thing out, and it's basically, it calculates what you're expected to pay per college. And that number is basically tattooed on you. And then you go to all these colleges and you show them your tattoo. So your tattoo says you can pay $9,000 a year for college. You go to University of Chicago, University of Chicago says, okay, you're expected to pay $9,000. Well, we don't charge $9,000. We charge $80,000, but we can get down to $9,000 if it says that you can pay $9,000. That's what you need. You might go to another college, say for instance, Columbia College in Chicago, and they might say, well, I know you're expected to pay $9,000, but we can't get to $9,000. We can get to $30,000. But don't worry, we can give you loans in order to cover the rest. And that's how this whole game of trying to figure out what each college is going to offer you, that's how it works.
Gotcha. Okay. Good. Now let me ask you this. Here's the other thing too, because people want to know, what are some of the, in your research, in this whole endeavor, what are some of the eligibility and what are some of the eligibility criteria and things that can exclude them also?
Right. Okay. So this is what I like, because I specifically deal with middle and upper middle income families that um, they're unlikely to qualify for financial aid without having a professional take a look at everything. I call them the people that make too much money to qualify for state and federal grants, but not enough to pay full boat for college.
Mm-hmm.
What the colleges look for in order to determine if you are eligible for financial aid, they look at two things. They look at your kids' grades,
Okay.
and we call those academic scholarships. You can have people that make upwards of 5, 6, it doesn't matter how much you make, because the money that is given is based on the kids' grades. I had a family last year that they made about $500,000 a year, but they got $42,000 a year in grants from Santa Clara, right? But that's because the money was given based on the grades, okay? Mm-hmm. Then you have money based on finances, based on your need.
Okay.
So what the colleges do, and goes back to what I was telling you, they look at your income, the parents' assets, the students' income, the students' assets. They look at how many people live in the house and how many people are going to college at that time. And that's why I recommend you do that EFC calculation, because I have families that I work with that they do high six figures. They do 300,000, but they still qualify for financial aid at USC. Why? Because they may be sending 2 kids to college at the same time. They may have 3, 4 people in the household. They may be supporting the grandparents, which the colleges take all this into consideration.
Yeah.
So if someone were to ask me what's the income cutoff, it depends. You can have someone making 200,000, but because they have 2 kids going to school at the same time, because they have several dependents, they still qualify. You can also have somebody who makes the same amount of income, doesn't qualify for anything, right? And that's kind of how it works. That's why telling you to do the calculation is going to tell you how it relates to your situation.
Right.
Because 2 people with the same income can have completely different outcomes as they go through this process.
Excellent. And so you also said that the child or the high school is grade, their grade point average, or their how they're doing scholastically, that also determines kind of how much they're awarded.
Yeah. So it's 2 different ways. Like, I do have people where no matter what, they're not going to qualify for the financial based aid.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to qualify for the academic scholarships. And does that mean that your kid has to have straight 4.0, 4.7 perfect SAT score? No. If you want to get a scholarship to Duke University, or if you want to get a scholarship to some of the most highly selective colleges in the country, and you want to be the academic scholar, yeah, you probably need to have high grades, but it's all relative. You just want to be one of in the top 25th percentile of everyone that applies to that college. Okay. So what does it take to be in the top 25th percentile to get into the new school? Well, it might take your kid might have to have maybe a 1200 on the SAT and may have to have a 3.5 or above GPA.
Okay.
Is that what it takes to get in to be the top 25 percentile at Dartmouth? No, you need to be a lot higher than that. So that's how it's all relative.
Gotcha.
Right. So, if I'm trying to get someone an academic scholarship to a college, I'm going to look at which colleges they're going to be one of the top applicants. Or if I have time with them, say if I'm seeing them in the 9th, 10th, 11th grade, I can actually show them how to hit those benchmarks and make sure they have that. So by the time they're actually applying to college, there's no way they're not going to get $100,000, $200,000 from, some of the colleges they're looking at.
Wow. Important information. Definitely. Now, okay, well, we kind of talked about that. Now, here's the other thing. Now, as a parent, when they get ready to do all this, is there a specific department or is there a specific type of title for a specific type of officer that they should be contacting to get this? Like, what departments and who are they contacting, to get this information, and what specifically? Because sometimes it's just technical jargon, knowing what specifically to ask for, who to ask for, and where to ask for it from, you know.
Yeah. So, I always say there's 3 questions to ask every school. Is what percentage of your students are getting need-based financial aid? That's going to tell us whether this is a school that is good for money, gives out a lot of money for people that have financial aid eligibility. And then of the money you give out, how much of it is free money? How much of it is loans and work study? That's question number 2. And then how long does it take to graduate from your school, right? So not every school graduates their kids in 4 years.
Right.
That's one of the myths that my book tells a lot of people, that, a school that's charging maybe $25,000 a year as opposed to charging $50,000 a year, they may not give out a lot of financial aid. Most of the money they give out may be loans and work study. And then it takes 6 years on average for someone to graduate from their school. Meanwhile, a college that's $50,000 a year, they give you a half scholarship. They give you enough money for your financial aid. They give you free money, not loans. And it takes 4 years to graduate from there. So it may actually end up costing the same or less to go to the more expensive college. So that's, again, so 3 questions you ask every school. What percentage of your students are getting need-based financial aid? How much of the money you give out is grants versus loans and work study? And then how long does it take the average student to graduate from your school?
Like you said, need-based financial aid, how long to graduate, and what was that second one?
How much of the money you give out is free money versus loans and work study?
Very good information here. Another thing I want to know is, can parents reapply each year, or like how now, each year things change or whatever. At the same time, tuition increases each year. What's that like?
Yeah, so if your situation really actually, so we talked about academic scholarships, and we talked about need-based financial aid. The academic scholarships are usually guaranteed for all 4 years. So if a school offers you $30,000 a year, you get that same fixed number every year, unless your child's GPA drops below a certain number. That might be a 2.8 at some colleges, a 3.0, a 2.4. They're going to tell you in their scholarship offer. Need-based financial aid is done every year. So, if your income changes, or maybe at one point you have 2 kids going to college, but then one has graduated college, now you got one left. So that financial aid award will change every year. If you're a business owner and sometimes you have a really great year and sometimes you have a down year, that can happen. Some families, they might split up, and they might, have different finances each year. The colleges are aware of that. So that's why they ask you to fill it out every year.
Wait, I'm sorry, say the last part again.
Every year your kid's in college, of course.
So here's a question I want to ask. So, because you said they take everything into consideration. And this may sound like a silly question, but I just like to get technical. So let's say my wife and I have a child that's going to college. They've been awarded money their first year there, and it's fully covered, right? The school, they did their whole financial assessment, from the neck up, check up from the neck up. They looked at our job, they looked at our income, they looked at all our assets, they looked at children and all of that. And okay, we're gonna give you this money. If my wife and I happen to have another child within this year, would we probably get more money, being that that's kind of like, the need may increase? Or
Yes. It depends on whether or not that college has the money to give you.
Yeah.
But if you're already going to a college that has money to give you, is flush with grants to give out, if you add another person to the household, say if you have another child, or like I said, if you have, a father-in-law that moves in with you, a mother-in-law that moves in with you, that should increase how much grant you get. You know, it may increase it by, you know, $3,000 or $4,000 maybe, you know, per year.
Now, this is a curveball, and I don't know if you may have the answer or not, but you know, during that whole 2008 financial crisis, so many people went unemployed. A lot of people got laid off. A lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people had their homes foreclosed, and they had children in college, enrolled in college. Does that somehow change, or have you, you know, in your research, whether it's retrospective and research, how do you think that kind of impacted the awards for the institutional grants and scholarships?
Yeah, usually when the economy is going well, the colleges tend to be more generous. If the economy is not going well, some colleges may pull back. That's why I have to update my book every year to keep track of who's got money to give out and who doesn't. But, you know, you got to remember, these are large, private, nonprofit institutions that are some of the wealthiest institutions in the world. So they're not in a position where they're like the top universities that give out the most money. They don't just all of a sudden drop from, oh, you know, I remember when USC used to give out a full ride to everyone that needed it, to now they're not giving out anything. It doesn't happen year by year like that with some of the wealthiest universities. So in down economy years, the top and most generous colleges give out the same awards. Some of the colleges that are on the up and coming may pull back a little bit in what they offer. That's why you really want to make sure that the data that you're working with is up to date, and that this school still gives out the same amount of money as they used to.
Gotcha. Okay, so I kind of scrutinized you on all the awards process and everything. Tell us a little bit more about your book. I mean, because, you know, I'm pretty sure I haven't touched on everything in your book, but just, you know, I just want to make sure that the people that will watch this and that may be viewing this kind of get an idea that, hey, there are institutional grants and institutional scholarships out there that they can get and don't have to take loans for.
Right.
The different process, going to the EFC calculator, calculating the score, knowing how to shop that to the different colleges that, you know, they want to apply to, when to go ahead and apply to the different colleges and ask them. But what are some of the things in your book that, you know, you feel parents should know that we may not be tackling right now, or, you know?
Well, so it's a unique situation when you're divorced. You know, some colleges, if you're divorced or you're a single parent, some colleges want to know what the non-custodial parent's income and finances look like, and they're going to try to see if you're willing, or they're going to require that non-custodial parent also show the college their finances. Some schools will do that. What do I mean? It means that if you're a single parent and you've been raising your child, they've lived with you, you know, you take them to school, some colleges are going to ask if, you know, the other parent can also contribute towards the cost of college. And they may require that you show them that parent's finances, even if that parent doesn't want to, that other parent, right? So, some schools don't care at all. They just say, oh, well, you know, I just want the parent that, you know, has full custody, or the parent that the child lives with most of the time. You know, their finances are the ones that I'm concerned about. So that's a really important thing, because if you're a single parent and the school asks for both of your finances, it may be that you don't qualify for any, you know, financial aid or need-based financial aid. But if they only ask for one person's finances, then you qualify for a lot of money, right?
True.
Another thing with business owners, some schools want to know, you know, if you have business assets that you could sell. You know, do you have a lot of inventory? Does your business have a market value?
Wow.
So they want to pull your corporate returns, and they want to see whether there's something that you could sell that business for, and they want to include that in order to figure out what you can pay.
Wow.
So some schools don't. So we want to know if you've got a restaurant chain or, whatever. If you've got some real estate, we want to know what these schools are asking in order to figure out how much you have to pay. And some schools want to get into all that and some schools don't. Well, a lot of what my book does is it shows you which schools will ask you all that and which schools won't. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously you're going to pay a different amount based on that. Right. So that's important to know. I think what my book does is, when I was going through this process, I went into libraries and bookstores and coffee shops.
Mm-hmm.
I go home, and I go to the library and I go to the bookstore that I went to was Borders, so they're closed. They're not open. I go to the library and it feels like home to me because I was just pulling books off the shelf, trying to figure all this out. So this book is a great introduction so that you don't have to pull a lot of books off the shelf and piece that together. It kind of holds you by the hand and shows you what it's like to go through this process and how to cut corners. So it's going to guide you through the process, and it's built in 3 sections. The first section is just talking about the money. That section is called Let's Talk About the Money. How much does college cost? What does it take to get money based on financial aid? What does it take money to get based on grades? How do parents even pay for college? Right. The second section is everything that your student needs to be doing, your child needs to be doing if they're about to apply to college, as they're selecting colleges. What do they need to do in order to make sure they get into as many colleges that they're applying to as possible? Why is that important? Because if you don't get in, you're not going to get any money, right?
Right.
That's important to know what the child should be doing. And then the third section is what to do if you have a child that's an underclassman, or underclasswoman. So if they're in the 9th or 10th grade, they're not juniors and seniors yet. How do we make sure they're taking the right classes? How do we make sure that they're getting the most out of, the classroom, that they have a good relationship with their teacher, that they know how to write papers, they understand what's expected of them to do well in, honors classes, AP classes, IB classes, what kind of extracurricular activities do they, do they need to be a president of their high school class? Not necessarily. They can just find an activity that's meaningful to them that they can do, and that may be what gets them the scholarship. So that's how the book works.
Gotcha. So now, out of all these families that you've helped, do you have any interesting stories that kind of stuck out to you in your memories? Or
yeah, there's many stories, and but one that I remember is I remember this girl. Let's say her name was Kate, and Kate had a 2.6 GPA. She was so shy. When she talks, she puts her hand over her mouth like this.
Okay.
And if you ask her, hey, what do you think about this? She said, I don't know. And then you have to ask her 2-3 times in order for her to tell you what you really think. She also had a lot of test anxiety. So every time they put her in a test, she would clam up. We even put her in front of people that can help her with the test, and they reported, this student has a lot of test anxiety. So she didn't have a high test score, but she still ended up getting about $35,000 to go to Whittier College.
Wow.
And and that's $35,000 a year, right?
That's
so she got money at Woodbury, and the parents didn't want her to go too far. So, these are schools that are nearby that, she could still have a great college experience. And that's just a perfect example of, you don't need to have a 4.0. Right. A lot of people think the only people that are getting these scholarships are students that, are just amazing. Well, those kids are going to get scholarships usually anyway. It's the students where, I'm not, would this student really get to go to a 4-year college, if they didn't have access to this information? Would they go direct? Would they get this much money? That's a really great story that I like to talk about.
Good. And that was a story. And what's some of the feedback that you get, if you have? I mean, I know you got to have some good feedback.
And you told me this yesterday. The most common thing that I always hear is, I wish I'd known about you when I was in high school, or when I was sending my kids to college. Maybe they're older parents, but that's common. Another one is you know, so my book is called How to Get Free Money for College. And you might say, well, you know, how you get free money for college? That's simple. You just apply for financial aid. Well, it's a little bit more than that, because if you're applying for financial aid at colleges that are broke and don't have the money to give you, then it's not as simple as just turning in a financial aid form, right?
Sure.
So it's more about finding out which colleges are going to suit your child and are going to give you a lot of money to go. And you'll see that they're related. You know, if this kid is perfect for this college, you'll see that they're going to work really hard to give them a scholarship and to accept them, you know, even if they don't look like the average student, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a big one.
Wow. Excellent. Well, Trevor, like we're kind of almost winding down to the hour, but I want to make sure that people know, once again, the title of your book, where they can get the book, and your contact info in case people want to reach out. Because I know you probably get a lot of speaking engagements, or people may want you to come to their city and talk to, you know, the parents of their different schools and stuff like that. So once again, what's the name of your book one more time?
Yeah, actually, I got it right here.
Oh, good. There you go. Show it. Good.
So this is
Keep it up
How
there.
to Get Free Money for College. It's green for the money. You get it on Amazon. You can also download a portion of the book at collegefundingremedies.com. collegefundingremedies.com. Here's what I want you to know. This book, even though the book is $25, this book could be worth tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to you if you read it and you apply what's in here. That is my favorite thing to get, is a letter or a Facebook message or a comment on YouTube saying that book helped me to send my kid to Loyola Chicago, and they're so happy there and they're getting money there. And I have told, you know, everyone I know about your book. That's what the whole point is, you know. So the book is $25, but it's worth to you hundreds, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, right?
Okay. And how many pages is that, if you don't mind me?
This book is 246 pages. I'm looking at you know, the current edition. Yeah, 246 pages. It's you know, it's at a 7th grade reading level. So that's the other thing. It's not it's a fast read. You know, you can read it after a hard day's work and say, you know what, I'm just gonna open it. And I can promise you that if you read the first 10 pages, it's gonna be hard for you to put it down. You know, because it's you'll see what I mean. I wrote it for you if you're a parent or a grandparent that has a kid in high school that wants them to go to, you know, all those colleges that you want to go to, NYU, you know, Dartmouth. It's right there for you.
Social media, how can they reach you? Are you on social media?
Yeah, so you can friend me, Trevor Ramos, Trevor Ramos, Ramos. I have 2 profiles, and you can go ahead and friend me on both. My Facebook page is How to Get Free Money for College. So just type that into Facebook, How to Get Free Money for College. We're posting, you know, 2-3 posts a day on different contents, and this is how you're going to get plugged into all the videos and things we're doing. You can search Trevor Ramos on YouTube, and you'll find us there, or College Funding Remedies. And but you know what you really want to do is you want to go to collegefundingremedies.com, and there's an ebook version of the book that you can get, like partial parts of the book.
Yeah.
That's going to plug you into the whole community. So every time we're doing webinars, every time we're putting out new content, that's how you're going to get plugged in.
All right. Excellent, man. You know, people, I really hope that you had a good time getting this knowledge that Trevor has provided and shared with us. And I hope that it has sparked you to visit his website, go to his Facebook page, check out his YouTube videos, go to Amazon and get that. Like I said, $25 is a small investment. It's almost, it's not even an expense when you think about how much the cost of tuition is. If you were watching the whole stream earlier, you saw when I shared the screen, $50,000 a year. So $25 to get information to change that whole trajectory of your child's financial path, please check this out, support this brother. I co-sign and endorse it. So we definitely thank you for that. And you have a home here at SRN Live Television and Source Nation family. So with that being said, was there anything else that you want to share before we close out this evening?
Yeah, you know, if there's anything that you remember, anything that I told you, just remember, if you plan this out properly, right? Now, I'm not talking about if you wait to the last minute, but if you, 9th, 10th, 11th grade, you're thinking about this, with some good planning and just a couple of tips, you can get most of the money, if not all the money, to send all your kids to college. You don't have to take out these expensive student loans. You don't have to take out a second mortgage. You don't have to use all the savings that you have. You just apply this, have your kid read the book, you read the book, and you'll get tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars if you follow the directions in it. So my name is Trevor Ramos. I'm the author of How to Get Free Money for College.
All right, Source Nation. This is Dr. Samori Swygert, host of The Pendulum, every Wednesday, 8 p.m. on SRN Live Television. Once again, I just want to make sure we thank our sponsors because they make all of this possible. Once again, they are Zuliana Health and Fitness, Paper to Film Productions, Renovations, New Covenant of Praise Worship Center, Meet My Types Matchmaking, Blend to Blend Juice Bar Boutique, and Urban Grandstand Digital. And also, like I said, Source Nation, if you like to advertise with SRN Live Television, you want to contact Kathy B. Her email is kathylynn1971@gmail.com. That's KATHYLYNN1971@gmail.com, or TreacyJeffcoat@gmail.com. That's TRECIEJEFFCOAT@gmail.com. So with that being said, this is Dr. Samori Swygert. This is The Pendulum. Guest in the house today was Mr. Trevor Ramos. All right, so we'll hope to see you same time next week. Enjoy yourself, be safe, and be blessed. And we're out of here. Take care, Trevor. Thank you.
Get at me for beats, yo.